Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Prajajanaranjana Jaya Prajajanaranjana Jaya Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhav Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Neela Madhav Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai Ki Jai Shri La Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri La Gurudeva Ki Nitai Gaura Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we welcome all devotees today. We look at the third canto, 24th chapter, and the text is 43. Mano Brahmani Yunjano Yattat Sat Asata Param Guna Vabhashen Viguna Eka Bhaktya Nubhavite Mano Brahmani Yunjano Yattat Sat Asata Param Guna Vabhashe Viguna Eka Bhaktya Nubhavite Mano Brahmani Yunjano Yattat Sat Asata Param Guna Vabhase Viguna Eka Bhaktya Nubhavite Manaha, mind, Brahmani, on the Supreme, Yunjanaha, fixing, Yat, which, Tat, that, Sat Asataha, cause and effect, Param, beyond, Guna Avabhase, who manifests the three modes of material nature, Vigune, who is beyond the material modes, Eka Bhaktya, by exclusive devotion, Anubhavite, who is perceived. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. He fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman, who is beyond cause and effect, who manifests the three modes of material nature, who is beyond those three modes, and who is perceived only through unfailing devotional service. Please hear the purport. Whenever there is bhakti, there must be three things present: the devotee, the devotion, and the Lord. Without these three, bhakta, bhakti, and Bhagavan, there is no meaning to the word bhakti. Kardama Muni fixed his mind on the Supreme Brahman and realized him through bhakti or devotional service. This indicates that he fixed his mind on the personal feature of the Lord, because bhakti cannot be executed unless one has realization of the personal feature of the Absolute Truth. Gunavabhashe. He is beyond the three modes of material nature, but it is due to him that the three modes of material nature are manifested. In other words, although the material energy is an emanation of the Supreme Lord, he is not affected, as we are, by the modes of material nature. We are conditioned souls, but he is not affected, although the material nature has emanated from him. He is the supreme living entity and is never affected by Maya. But we are subordinate, minute living entities, prone to be affected by the limitations of Maya. If he is in constant contact with the Supreme Lord by devotional service, the conditioned living entity also becomes free from the infection of Maya. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sa Gunan Samatityetan. A person engaged in Krishna consciousness is at once liberated from the influence of the three modes of material nature. In other words, once the conditioned soul engages himself in devotional service, he also becomes liberated like the Lord. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So this is a very nice verse, and it is describing actually how Kardama Muni is actually fixing his mind on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We find in this verse that the process of how we can actually perceive Krishna is given. And Bhagavatam tells us in this verse that we can only perceive Krishna when our devotional service is unfailing. This is a very important point. The word unfailing is really nice. And the word perceived is also significant. Perceive means anubhavite. And anubhavite not only means that we perceive, but this perception can come only through realization. Just by seeing the deity of the Lord, if one's heart is not devotional, even though the deity form is so wonderful that it purifies our heart, there is a difference between a devotee who actually has unfailing devotional service and one whose devotional service is failing, meaning start, stop, start, stop. So that is why Krishna can be perceived, and the word that's used here is only. Notice Prabhupada uses he can only be perceived by unfailing devotional service. And Prabhupada quotes actually this very nice point from 1426 of Bhagavad Gita. Sa gunan samatityetan. In other words, the only way to attain Krishna is actually when our devotional service becomes very fixed, like an arrow that finds its target. It's very important. And when that kind of devotional service is performed, then we are actually beyond the material modes of nature. Otherwise, as this translation tells us, these material modes of nature is so powerful. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, we are conditioned souls. So actually, while Krishna is never affected by the modes of material nature, as conditioned souls, we are always prone to be infected and therefore affected by Maya. Prabhupada uses the word infection so nicely. And we are in the midst of a pandemic, so the word infection is always used here. But here, more larger than the infection of this virus is this virus of Maya. And Maya is such a powerful virus that she has been with us from time immemorial. And we think, that we are not in a pandemic. But actually, Maya infects everyone in this material world. So the original pandemic actually is forgetfulness of Krishna. And the moment we forget Krishna, then the pandemic of infection from Maya has come into our lives. That is why Guru Maharaj always told us that it takes only a moment for us to remember Krishna, and it takes a moment for us to also forget him. And the moment we forget Krishna, the infection of Maya comes. And what is the result of it or the signs of it? We become disturbed. But the moment we are not infected by Maya, that means we are remembering Krishna. And if we are remembering Krishna, then we are infected by bhakti. And that is why this word bhakti starts Srila Prabhupada's purport. And bhakti is so nicely stated here. Prabhupada says, whenever there is bhakti, we must remember three things must be present. First, there must be a devotee. There must be a person, and that person is a bhakta. Then there must be devotion. So you have the bhakta on one side, and then you have right in the center this platform known as devotion. And then on this side, you have Krishna, who is actually the object of worship and who's known as Bhagavan. So there must be devotee, there must be devotion, and there must be the Lord. And Prabhupada writes emphatically that if you don't have bhakta, and you don't have bhakti, and you don't have Bhagavan, then what happens? Then factually speaking, there is no bhakti. There is no bhakti. So the ingredients of bhakti is very nicely given to us by Prabhupada. So as long as Bhagavan is there and bhakta is there, and the process that brings us to Bhagavan is bhakti. And the moment we have all three, then bhakti is present. So that is why Kardama Muni here, the whole chapter is entitled Renunciation of Kardama Muni, right? And it's so important here that when we see what the chapter is about, the whole chapter is actually about how Kardama Muni renounced his life. Before that, Kardama Muni came, he got married to Devahuti. He took instructions from Lord Brahma. And even though he did not want to get married, he followed Lord Brahma's instructions. And then Swayambhuva Manu presented his very exalted and very well qualified daughter Devahuti to Kardama Muni. And Kardama Muni then said, I will accept her. And after giving her children, daughters, and he gave her one beautiful, wonderful son who is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, then Kardama Muni considered that his duties were finished. And a few verses before this, he actually takes permission from he takes permission from Kapila Dev. And when he takes permission from Kapila Dev, Bhagavatam tells us, he very nicely then says that Kapila Dev, the moment he took instructions from Kapila Dev, what did he do? He then decided, this is in the 38th verse, by the way. Yeah? If you look back in the 38th verse, after taking permission from Kapila Dev to renounce, then Kadama Muni became what we call Pritaha. Pritaha. And if you read the word Pritaha in that verse 38, just few verses before this chapter, this verse, you find that the word Pritaha means to become pacified. Such a nice point, to become pacified. So this is a very important point. Bhakti has so many ingredients to it. But one of the most important ingredients of bhakti is that we should have genuine renunciation from material things and genuine attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is actually a very important process of bhakti. Kadana Muni did not want to renounce artificially. Sometimes in the name of renunciation, we do so many things, but that renunciation is very often because it is based on aversion. And the reason why we've become averse to something is because previously we were very attached to it. You find in our lives that which is material and you become very attached to, after a while when you get tired of it, you become averse to it. But the problem is, in this material world, when we become averse to something, we think that is renunciation. But in the spiritual world, aversion and attachment are both material. When you're averse to something, you don't like it, you dislike it, but it is not renunciation. Because in a matter of time, that which you're averse to, you can become attached to also. So this point we must understand. Do not mistake aversion for something to renunciation. Because aversion and attachment, Bhagavatam tells us through Prahlad Maharaj, right, is actually acceptance and rejection. Yasmad priya apriya viyoga samyoga janma. So in the 7th canto, 9th chapter, I think, Prahlad Maharaj says very nicely that this whole material world is running on one basis. This whole material world is just running on the basis of we accept something and we reject something. We accept something and we reject something. And when we reject and accept, what happens is we become attached to something, we become averse to something. So one day you like your family, next day family doesn't treat you very well, you are averse to them. The next day they treat you very well, you become attached to them. So actually renunciation is not present in attachment and aversion. Kardama Muni's renunciation was that of a devotee. A devotee just doesn't renounce something. Renunciation for a devotee is automatic. It comes by the principle of yadrichayaha. Yadrichayaha in Sanskrit means by the ordinary cause of activity, which is actually the hand of Krishna. Kadama Muni turned to Kapila Dev, his son, who's actually Krishna. And what did he say? He begged permission to now influence himself in devotional service, to fix himself in devotional service. So important. And because this is an important message to all of us, we should always remember one very important thing. We should remember that we should not even take the next step without getting proper blessings and without getting proper focus of attention and what we call permission from Krishna. It's so important. We must get permission from Krishna before we perform anything. If we do something speculatively, then it is not bhakti. Because why? Bhagavan is not present. If we perform an activity, we may be bhakta. But if we perform an activity and we devote our heart into that activity, so some bhakti is there, devotion is there. But if the activity is not dovetailed to Bhagavan, then the formula fails. It fails. And very often in this material world, someone may be devoted to a cause and say, I am a bhakta of nationalism. I am a bhakta of a cause. But if there's no Bhagavan, then actually there is no bhakti. The process is incomplete. That's why Prabhupada in the starting part of the purport says that the most important ingredient for all three is Bhagavan. We should be very clear that the goal of life is Krishna. And Bhagavan means that there is a personal feature to him. It's so important, Prabhus and Matajis. We should never think that Krishna is impersonal. The impersonal feature is just one aspect of the Lord's energy. But we want the Lord in all his completeness. And therefore, all of us are encouraged always to see the form of the Lord. Our devotional service can only be perfect when there is the Lord in his personal feature and we surrender everything at his lotus feet. That is why it's so important for us to always never be impersonal in devotional service. And that is why Krishna is always affectionate. He's Bhakta Vatsal, always looking out, friendly and loving to his devotees. Krishna is Haraye, Hari Medase. He's always trying to remember day and night all the living entities. He's worried about them. Why? Because he's trying to reclaim them as much as possible so that they become happy and peaceful in devotional service. Krishna is always trying to find how Yayatma Suprasidati, how every living entity can become satisfied. And the only way to become satisfied is that we first please Krishna. If Krishna becomes samsiddhir haritoshanam, if Krishna is satisfied first, then we also become satisfied. So always we must remember this nice formula. We may be bhaktas, but the end result of our bhakti is Bhagavan. And how do we perform it? Perform it on the platform of devotional service. And how did Kadama Muni perform devotional service in renunciation? He performed devotional service in renunciation by first of all asking for permission to become a renunciate. Otherwise, it would have been speculative. That was the difference that separated, the Nishada prince, who was, what was his name? I forget. Ekalavya. Yes, Ekalavya. Ekalavya was supposed to be a very great archer, but speculatively he accepted Dronacharya as a spiritual master. He didn't realize that the first starting journey for endeavor in any perfection is to seek the blessings of the pure devotees and seek the blessings of the Lord. without getting the blessings of the pure devotees and the Lord, whatever activity that we perform actually is not bhakti. It is speculation. So it's very important for us to remember this principle. And how do we know then if this principle is working? Because we are pacified and we are blissful when we perform devotional service. In the 3rd canto, 5th chapter, 42nd verse, this point of pritaha, pacified, is given very nicely. Yat shraddhaya shrutavatya cha bhaktya. So nice. Samrijyamane hridaye avadhaya. So in this verse, the devatas are praying to Krishna. Jnanena vairagya balena dhira vraje matate angri saroja pitam. So they pray so nicely to Krishna. They say, Krishna, simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge. This is a very important point. Krishna says so, the Devatas say so nicely this point. What do they say? They say that the first step to become a devotee, what should we do? The first step to become a devotee is we should be simple. Kadam Muni was very simple. He only came to perform the devotional service of becoming a householder. That's all he did. Otherwise, he was very fixed. He is known in this verse as Eka Bhaktya. He is known as Eka Bhaktya. Except for Krishna, he had nothing else in his mind. So that's why Yat Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya. The bhakti that we have must be simple. Simple means no complications, it must be focused. And how do we perform this kind of bhakti? By hearing about Krishna. That's what we're all doing. And how should we hear about Krishna? We should hear about Krishna with eagerness. We should not feel, another time we have to sit down and hear Krishna. That's not eagerness. We should have eagerness. Yes, I want to hear about Krishna. The mind will tell you, no, don't inquire about Krishna. It's okay. But no, you should use intelligence and say, no, I want to hear about Krishna. So be simple, hear about Krishna with eagerness and devotion. You don't need to have a seminar on how to become devoted, Prabhus and Matajis. Devotion is so a part of our lives. When we love something, we become devoted, isn't it? That's the part of us that's really human. When we are devoted to something, that's why we are different from the animals. Even animals can express devotion. They express it through loyalty. So we should learn from the animals actually. So devotees means that we are devoted. How are we devoted? When we are eager. And these devotees meditate upon Krishna within the heart. And that is what Kardama Muni did. He fixed his mind. See the verse? He fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So his mind became a reservoir of meditation on Krishna. Very nice point. His mind became the reservoir of meditation on Krishna. And that's what 3.5.42 is telling us, that we meditate on Krishna's lotus feet. So if we are not eager, if we are not simple, if we don't hear about Krishna, it's very hard to meditate on Krishna's lotus feet. And it's very hard to bring this mind under control. It's very important. And when we do all this, then what happens? Then we become enlightened with transcendental knowledge. Very important. Why? Because samrijyamane hridaya. Our heart becomes cleansed with knowledge from Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and from Srila Prabhupada. That is why we are studying Bhagavatam so religiously and diligently, because this knowledge will enlighten our heart. It will fix our mind. But this knowledge can come when we are bhaktas. And what is this knowledge about? It's about the object of our devotion, Bhagavan. So bhakti is there, Bhagavan is there, and that process of hearing and with eagerness, devotion, and the knowledge that comes, that's all bhakti. And when that comes, what happens? Automatically, Bhagavatam tells us, Vairagya will come. The renunciation of Kardama Muni was very natural for him. Why? Because 3.5.42 tells us he's a devotee. He's a devotee. For a devotee, very naturally, knowledge as well as renunciation, they come very easily. That is what the verse in Vasudeva Bhagavati tells us.
And on the strength of this detachment, very nicely it is stated, dhiraha. A devotee becomes dhiraha. And a devotee is dhira when he becomes ekabhaktya. So Kadama Muni, when he got the blessings of Kapila Dev, he became very dhira. He became very dhira. And the word dhira normally means sober, isn't it? We are serious and we are sober. We're very grave about our spiritual life. But if you read 3.5.42, Prabhupada gives another deeper meaning to dhira. Dhira means we are sober. But the effect of dhira is given by Prabhupada in 3.5.42. The effect of one who is sober, because he understands the value of human life, is that he becomes pacified. The Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean in this world. If you go very deep in the Pacific Ocean, you find that even though it is large and millions of gallons of water are draining into this great ocean, the ocean is very dhira. It is very still, very peaceful. Inside the ocean, it is very calm. And yet, outside, so much of water is moving. Great waves are at the top of the ocean. But in the depth of the ocean, it is completely pacified. Why? Because we are also like that. The devotee may have so many material infections of Maya around them, but if they are connected to Krishna, then they are always pacified. This is a very important point. And how do they become pacified? By fixing their mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is what Kadama Muni did. And that's what the verse tells us. To fix it means, therefore, there is nothing else in the mind but Krishna. And that is what happened to Gajendra. In Bhagavatam, we find so many great devotees, they actually fixed their minds on Gajendra. On Krishna. Gajendra was in so much trouble, if you remember Bhagavatam. He was in so much trouble. 1,000 years of being caught in the network of illusion in the form of the crocodile. But when he realized that everybody had deserted him and no material solution was going to save him, what happened to him? He became bhakta. He became devotee because he realized, wait a minute, the source of my protection, the source of my shelter is not my family, not the generals, not my strength. No, the source of all shelters, the shelter of all shelters, Paramparayanam, that is the person I should be going to. Bhakta then executed bhakti, and his whole series of prayers are aimed, Eka Bhaktya, at who? At the source of all sources, and that is Bhagavan. The moment Gajendra became Bhakta, executed bhakti towards Bhagavan, then what happened? The process became complete. And the moment that process became complete, then Bhagavatam tells us, Evam vyavasito buddhya samadhaya manohridi jajapa paramam japyam pragjanmani anushikshitam. What happened to Gajendra then? The king of the elephants, Gajendra, he fixed his mind in his heart. Such a nice point. He dragged that mind of his into his heart. Because in heart, Krishna is there. And he used the perfect intelligence of realizing that in this world, everything is temporary. Everything is in the modes of material nature. But Krishna is above the modes of material nature. That's what Prabhupada tells us. That is how we act on this knowledge. And he acted based on anubhavite, on his experience. So he fixed his mind in his heart with perfect intelligence. And with perfect intelligence, what happened? He chanted a mantra. And he started chanting his prayers, which he had learned not as Gajendra, but from his previous birth. Can you imagine that? From his previous birth. And how was he able to do that? Did he have a good memory? No. Even if you have the best memory in the world, you can never remember what happened in your previous life. In fact, one time Admanivedan Maharaj told us when he took a class in Singapore, can you all remember what the clothes of the deities were wearing, Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra, every day of the week? You can't even remember what they wore yesterday. Sometimes we also can't remember what we wore yesterday. So how can we remember our previous life? Gajendra could remember mantras from his previous birth because Bhagavatam tells us it was the grace of Krishna that allowed him to remember. And why did the grace of Krishna come? It came because he became a devotee and he fixed his mind on Krishna and he fixed it with all his heart. And because he fixed it with all his heart with intelligence, there was bhakti, there was bhakta, and he was looking to the object of his worship, Bhagavan. And that is why he became so fixed. And that is what Kadama Muni did also. So that is why when we talk about Eka Bhaktya, it's very important for us to realize that bhakti will work, but it has to be very focused. Prahlad Maharaj himself stated very nicely to Hiranyakashipu. You remember towards the last part of the 8th chapter of 7th canto, Hiranyakashipu is so angry now, he wants to kill Prahlad Maharaj. And he says, who is the source of all your power and your bravery? Who is the source of this? Tell me now. And what did Prahlad Maharaj say? He said, my dear father, the source of my power is the source of your power also. Such a nice point. Such a great message of unity. You know, when we hate someone, we always think they are different from us. That's why we hate people. But the moment we realize the source of their strength is the source of my strength, it becomes a message of unity. It becomes a message of unity. Then we realize, oh, they're not very different from us because we are all part and parcel of Krishna. And in that way, we become fixed on Krishna instead of wasting our time looking at other people and criticizing them and judging them. That is not Eka Bhaktya. No, that is not Avyabhicharena. That is not chaste bhakti. And if we are not chaste in bhakti, how can we come out of the modes of material nature? It is impossible. Impossible. We can only come out of the modes of material nature if we are connected to Krishna. Why? Because the purport tells us Krishna is not touched by the material modes of nature. That is the key. That is the key. So that's why, as we stated here, Kadama Muni became so fixed. Just like Gajendra became fixed. Why? Just like Prahlad Maharaj was fixed. Even though the demons were causing him so much disturbances and harassment, he could be fixed on Krishna because he recognized the source of my power is the source of all powers, and it is Krishna. If he thought that the source of the power of Hiranyakashipu was Hiranyakashipu, he would get angry with Hiranyakashipu. You follow? But because in the devotee's heart he realizes even though someone is demonic, but the source of his power is actually Krishna. So then we don't get angry with other people because we see the hand of Krishna behind everything. It becomes so much more pacific. It becomes so much more easier for us, for our mind to become pacified. And that is the meaning of Dhira. And that's why in 3542, the Devatas, they say that those who become Dhiraha, they can take shelter of the sanctuary of the Lord's lotus feet. You know, the word sanctuary is so nice. Sometimes, you know, in parks, they have animal sanctuary. Animal sanctuary means all the animals who may be endangered species. That place is called sanctuary because the animals can roam peacefully. Why? Because they are protected. So when we take up Eka Bhaktya, when we become Bhakta, when there is devotional service and there is Bhagavan, this process becomes our sanctuary. You see, this process becomes our sanctuary. And this whole process will pacify our hearts. It will pacify our mind. That is why when Parikshit Maharaj was faced with the great calamity of being cursed by Shringi Brahmana, all he did was to accept it as the hand of Krishna. Yes, it was disturbing, and we are all disturbed naturally. But whenever we are disturbed, we should immediately go back to Krishna. And the moment we are with Krishna, we are not disturbed. When we are disturbed, we are not with Krishna. Go back again to Krishna. And this is considered to be Eka Bhaktya. This is a very important point given. And this Eka Bhaktya is the unflinching devotional service of Kardamam. That's why he became very peaceful. There's another verse that explains this very nicely. I think it's in the first canto, third chapter, 38th verse. 1:3:38. Save dadatu padavim parasya durantaviryasya rathangapane yo mayaya shantataya nuvritya Bhajet tatpada saroja gandham. This verse is so nice. It is chanted by Shukadev Goswami, and he tells us only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, and favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, only those can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, in his full power, and in his full transcendence. Such a nice point. If we really want to know Bhagavan, then our bhakti will have to have these three ingredients. It must first of all be unreserved. Very important point. Unreserved. Unreserved means without reservation. We should not hold back something and say, Krishna, I will do bhakti, but you have to do this, that, this, that. Then I'm okay. In this world, we are generally very cautious. But with Krishna, we should be completely unreserved. Guru Maharaj used to say, to understand reservation, you should understand the trains in India. If you take reservation, you have a chance to sit on a seat. And even then, sometimes it's difficult. But if you jump on a train without reservation, then it is unreserved. What must you do? Just surrender to Krishna. One time we were traveling with Maharaj and we were trying so hard to get reservation tickets. In the end, we couldn't get it. So I remember approaching Maharaj and say, Maharaj, we don't have any ticket reservation. So what to do? And Maharaj said, "Well, that means we are unreserved. That means we have to surrender to Krishna and just jump on the train and see what happens." And Maharaj said, if you don't expect anything because you're unreserved, Krishna will protect you. And true enough, when we boarded the train, there were three of us. The moment they saw Maharaj, three people just gave their seats and they said, Guruji, you please sit there. And Maharaj said, I can sit, but my two companions must also sit. And so all three of them vacated their seats. And we sat down very nicely with Maharaj and we studied Bhagavatam. This is the meaning of being unreserved. The second point is those who don't have reservations in their heart when they accept Krishna as Bhagavan, very automatically Krishna will allow that service to be uninterrupted. Even if there are challenges, he will allow it to be uninterrupted. Why? Because we are unreserved. We are unreserved. We are focused on Krishna. Jatayu was a good example in Ramayana. Jatayu's final service before he left this world was to fight Ravana, even though he knew that he had no chance of success. It didn't matter. Service is rendered without reservation. In other words, it's not rendered with an expectation of a result. Therefore, he fought Ravana, and till the death, he tried his best. And because he tried very hard, his devotion and cause to trying to please Lord Ram in his fight rendered him always favorable to devotional service. And that's the third ingredient, favorable. And because he was favorable and unreserved, his devotional service was uninterrupted. And what was the result of that? Lord Ram and Lakshman came, and when they heard the great sacrifice of Jatayu, they actually performed Jatayu's funeral as if they were the two sons of Jatayu. Just like parents, have their children to perform their funeral services and the last rites. Lord Ram took the role of the eldest son of Jatayu and Lakshman as the youngest son of Jatayu, and they performed the funeral rites for a great devotee of the Lord. So those who do this, what happens? They only can understand Krishna, Lord Ram, in his full glory. So always remember, for bhakti to be performed by the bhakta, you must have unreserved devotional service, uninterrupted devotional service, and the devotional service must be favorable. And when you look at the word to word meaning of 1338, you'll find this really nice point. The way Prabhupada describes uninterrupted is very nice. It is known as santataya. Santataya, and Prabhupada actually translates the word to word as without any gap. Very nice point, without any gap. So we must make sure that there is no gap in our devotional service. Whether it is rain, shine, whether we accept something, reject something, whether something is averse or something is attached. These things should not become the impediments to our bhakti. We should just continue with full velocity. And when we continue with full velocity, then bhakti actually reciprocates with us. How does bhakti reciprocate with us? by Bhagavan reciprocating with us. That's why Narada Muni asked his father Brahmaji in the second canto, sixth chapter, my dear father, how is it that you can actually create this amazing creation? And actually Brahma replied very nicely. He said, I can only create this because Krishna is the person who gave me all this knowledge. I prayed to Krishna for creative energy, and he gave me full knowledge. And then he says very nicely in 2.634 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Na bharati me angam risho upalakshate, navai kvachin me manaso mrisha gatihi, Name rishikani patanti asatpate, yanme hridau kantavyata drito harihi. Such a nice verse. And there, Brahmaji is giving us a nice understanding of Eka Bhaktya. He says, Narada, all that I've achieved is only because of one thing. Because I have caught hold very tightly, with great zeal and enthusiasm, I have caught hold of the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the meaning of Drita Hari. Dhritarashtra means one who has caught hold very tightly, not to the lotus feet, but to property and assets and material acquisitions. So that is why Dhritarashtra was known as Dhritarashtra. But here Brahmaji says, I am not Brahma. I am simply Drita Hari. I'm just trying to hold on to the lotus feet of Krishna very strongly. And that's all we can do, Prabhus and Matajis. Bhakta, by the process of remembering Krishna Bhakti, what do? We hold on very tightly to the lotus feet of Bhagavan. And when we do it with great zeal, with great strength, with great faith, with great diraha, then what happens? Then Brahmaji says three things happen. Whatever I speak will never be untrue. And that is why the pure devotees, whatever they speak, be it blessing, be it instruction, if we follow it, it will always come to pass. Why? Because Krishna always supports the statements of the great devotees of the Lord. He always does. This is first result of that bhakti. The second symptom of such bhakti is the progress of my mind, Brahmaji says, is never deterred. That's why you find even till the ripe old age, the devotees who practice devotional service, they never lose consciousness of Krishna because Bhagavan always protects the bhakti of the devotee, always protects the bhakti of the devotee. And finally, my senses, they are never degraded into the temporary attachment to matter. Such a nice point. If our senses degrade, then what happens is we become disturbed. But if our senses are always infected by Krishna consciousness, then we are always pacified. We are always ekabhaktya. Otherwise, as Prabhupada says in the purport, we become infected by Maya. That's why Prabhupada says so nicely, if you read the purport of 2.634, Prabhupada says so nicely, the plans of the devotees never go in vain. They never go in vain. Kadama Muni had a plan to renounce even before he married Devahuti. He thought, after I get married to her, my plans are now in vain. But because he was a devotee and he married her for the right reasons, and he followed the instructions of Brahma before marrying her, and because after marriage he gave her the child, and then he saw the blessings of Kapila Dev before he left, the plan of Kapila Dev, of Kadama Muni, did not go in vain. It did not go in vain. Why? Prabhupada writes in the purport, the plans of the devotees never go in vain. And all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. So bhakti is really about our service. It is service in devotion. That's what it is. And when there is such a devotion and there is such service, then it is one-pointed. That is why Bhagavad Gita declares, Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And this verse is quoted by Srila Prabhupada in 2.634, and it is quoted by him in today's purport also. And Prabhupada gives us a nice advice. Anyone who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the relationship of transcendental loving service will always be infallible in words and action. We should memorize this sentence. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead in the relationship of transcendental loving service will always be infallible in words and action. If you read that one line now, it's a long line, the exact point given by Prabhupada here about bhakti is given. Bhakti, Bhakta, and Bhagavan. All three are explained in that one line. And therefore, Prabhupada concludes 2634 by saying, one grain of devotion is more valuable than tons and tons of faithlessness. This is so important, Prabhus and Matajis. So, what is the conclusion that we can understand in devotional service? Tasmad ekena manasa Bhagavan satvatam patihi shrotavya kirtitavyascha dheya pujaschа nityada. I think it is 1:2:14 of Srimad Bhagavatam. The royal road for us to follow Kadama Muni is to become Eka Bhaktya. When we are Eka Bhaktya, the three modes of material nature cannot touch us. Why? Because we are not holding on to the tail of the modes of material nature. We are holding on to the lotus feet of Hari. What is that verse? Avesmitantam paripurna kamam swaneva labena samam prashantam vinopasapati aparam hi balishaha swalangulena tititarti sindhum. This verse is really nice. I think it is in 6th canto, 9 chapter, 26 verse. And there, very nicely, this purport that we are reading today is summarized in that verse. The Devatas say that Krishna is freed from all material conceptions. That is why he's not touched by the three modes of material nature. The example in Bhagavatam that's given is actually that of the spider. A spider weaves a web and others get caught in the web. But have you ever seen a spider who weaves a web and gets caught in its own web? It's considered to be a very inefficient spider if that happens. You'll never see a spider doing that. Every spider never gets caught in his own web. And Krishna is like that. He's like the transcendental spider. The web is this material world. The modes of nature are parts of the material web. When we are not connected to Krishna, we are implicated in the web and we become prey to material nature. But Krishna himself, he has weaved it. So he knows the way out of the web. And if we are connected to Krishna, we are never touched by the web. This is the greatness of Krishna. And this is a very important point for us to realize. And that is why in this verse it is so nicely stated, Tasmat ekena manasa, with all full-heartedness, one pointed attention. Constantly we hear, constantly we glorify, constantly we remember, constantly we worship. Who do we worship? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Satvatam Patihi, the protector of the devotees, the sanctuary of the devotees. That was the real meaning of renunciation of Kardama. That's what he wanted, and that's what he was doing. So this is a very important point for us to remember. A warning is given in Bhagavatam, and this warning is given actually by Rishabdev in the 5th canto, 5th chapter, 5th verse. Parabhavastha vadabhota jato yavan najijñāsata atma tattvam yavat kriyastha varidam manovai karmadmakam yena sharira bandha. This warning we must take seriously. Rishabdev tells to his sons, as long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and he is subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruitive activity. And as long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear. And as long as one is absorbed in fruitive activities, you must accept a material body. It's a very, very serious and sober warning. And this is actually given by Prabhupada. Prabhupada says that we are implicated in the modes of material nature, unlike Krishna. Why are we implicated? We're implicated because we live a life of acceptance and rejection, sin and piety. Karmas always come from that. And where there are karmas, the cobweb is there. But we are not touched when we are with the spider. Very important point. Krishna is not touched by the material modes of nature. He's not implicated. That is why Krishna can transgress whatever morality we have in this material world, and he's still Krishna. Remember in Mahabharata, Krishna broke his vow twice. In this world, one of the dharmic principles is never break your vows. I'm not saying you should all break your vows now, but Krishna is Krishna. Krishna broke his vow twice in Mahabharata. He swore never to raise any weapon, but he became Ratangapane. Why? Because his devotee Arjuna was going to be threatened by another great devotee, Bhishma. And the Lord's pastime was so sweet that he took a wheel and he descended from the chariot with his hair all strewn out and his upper body garment coming out, looking amazing. And he rushed, and as he rushed towards Bhishma Dev, that great charioteer and great devotee, he thought how glorious it is that the Lord can transgress anything because he's the Supreme Lord. That's why we must remember that bhakti can only happen when we know the greatness of Bhagavan. If we don't know the greatness of Bhagavan, then bhakti is very haphazard. There is no goal of life. That's why parabhavas, we have to understand the spiritual value of life. And we can only understand the spiritual value of life when we have the goal of life, Bhagavan. Otherwise, there is no goal. There is no goal. How to shoot something when you cannot see the goal? It's useless. You may have the best bow, best arrow, the best procedure. That means you may be bhakta, you may be bhakti, but where is Bhagavan? Where is Bhagavan? It's a very important point. And that is why Bhishma Dev became so happy to see Krishna that way. And Arjuna fell at his feet and said, Krishna, don't do that. And when was the second occasion? The second occasion was actually towards the tail end of the Mahabharata war. Technically, Prabhupada writes in the first canto, 7th, 8th chapter, Mahabharata war had not ended yet, not officially. But when that Brahmashtra came towards Uttara to kill Parikshit Maharaj, what did the Lord do? The Lord descended into the womb of Uttara when she prayed, right? Pahi, Pahi Mahayogin, Deva, Deva Jagatpate. She prayed. And he entered into the womb of Uttara Mata. And when he entered into the womb, he came, Prabhupada writes, in his form with chakra. And he took his chakra, which is a weapon, and he was ready to protect Parikshit Maharaj. And Prabhupada writes, the Lord broke his vow even then. But that is why he is above material modes of nature. When we hear all these things, Prabhus and Matajis, doesn't it induce a great sense of faith? Doesn't it induce a great sense of strength in our hearts that here is the Lord, the most powerful Lord, the extraordinary Lord who can protect us. And that is how we take sanctuary of his lotus feet. And that is why, in conclusion, we must have one very important prayer in our heart, that we should always only have Krishna. When you have time, you should look at Kulashekar Alva's prayers. He had some really nice prayers. And in the text 24 of his prayers, there's a very beautiful prayer. And I just want to read to you the translation, because the translation tells us what Eka Bhaktya is and how Kadama Muni could fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. The translation of that prayer is very beautiful. O Madhava, please do not let me even glance at those whose pious credits are so depleted that they have no devotion to your lotus feet. He's praying to Krishna, do not let me even glance at those who don't have faith in you. In other words, we should take association of devotees always. That is also our that is also our sanctuary. Second thing he says, please do not let me be distracted from listening to the worthy narrations of your pastimes and become interested in your topic. So he's praying, don't let me be distracted. Every time there's an opportunity to hear about me, please let me be there. And then the third thing he says, my dear Lord of the universe, let me pay no attention to those who avoid thinking of you. Such a nice point. Let my attention not go to those who actually avoid thinking of you. Again, sadhu sangha. And finally, he says, let me never be unable to serve you in some menial way. So he says, always give me some chance to perform some service to you, birth after birth. Bhakta, service, Bhagavan. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Srila Gurudev ki. Nitai Gaura Premanand. Thank you for putting the verse up, Hare Krishna. Are there any questions, realizations that you have?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I have a question, Prabhuji. I didn't understand the aversion and attachment which you spoke. Something regarding the previous birth. What did you tell?
A little louder, Mataji, sorry.
Aversion and attachment. Regarding the aversion and attachment related to previous birth, you told something. It was not clear.
Okay. Um, what I understand from Bhagavatam is that there is a relationship between attachment and aversion, acceptance and rejection. In this material world, Prahlad Maharaj correctly observes that this whole material world, Mataji, is moving on one basis. The basis of we becoming attached to something. When we are attached to something, we accept it. When then we become averse to that thing, then we reject it. So attachment and aversion, acceptance and rejection, they go hand in hand as a package in this material world. And we are always caught between these two. And our senses are engaged in accepting and rejecting. Our senses are engaged between becoming attached to something, becoming averse to something. One day someone is our friend, next day he's not our friend. And that causes so much disturbance of the mind. Sometimes, even as devotees, we come to congregation and we say, oh, this person I like, that person I don't. And amidst all that, how to remember Krishna? And how to remember Krishna from an Eka Bhaktya point of view. So that is why a devotee does not have attachment or aversion to something. You can find that, Mataji, actually in 264 Bhagavad Gita. Raga Dvesha Vimuktais Vishayan Indriyais Chayas. Atma Vashay Vidayatma Prasadam Adhikachati. It is nicely stated by Krishna, a person who is free from attachment and aversion, he is able to control his senses. How? Through regulative principles. And when that person is free of attachment and aversion, then what happens? That person can attract the complete mercy of Krishna. Prasadam adhikachati. So Krishna becomes attracted to a devotee who is not attached to attachment and aversion. In other words, genuine renunciation of this kind of thinking is the royal road towards becoming a devotee. Does that help, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I have two questions actually. Is it okay to ask?
Yeah, you asked the first because my memory is short. I'll do question by question.
Prabhuji, regarding that Alvar's prayers, you said, no, oh Madhava, please let me not glance who are not devotees. But uh, but again, Krishna is telling, no, that Krishna is residing in everyone's heart as Paramatma. So if we do not look others, if will not that create us a hatred? I mean, oh, they are not devotees, so we should not be looking at them. But when we take the example of Prabhupada went to US and created devotees who are fallen, who had been in bad company, everything. So what should we take? Which aspect we should take in prayers?
Very nice question, Mataji. The best way to answer this is to understand this point from Prabhupada's purports. In the third canto, actually, I'll find you the verse. It's actually in a purport. I don't have it immediately, but Prabhupada writes very nicely this point. Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. Therefore, one of the good qualities of a devotee is samapanditaha. A devotee always tries to see Krishna in everyone, which is why one of the great qualities of a devotee is actually Maitreya. He's very friendly to everyone. He's friendly to everyone. We don't have to hate someone in order for us not to take their association. In other words, we love all our parents, for example, and our love for our parents, is as unconditional as it can get in this material world. At the same time, if our parents are not devotees, we don't hate them. We love them. In fact, we pray and we try to share Krishna with them. So that part is very important, and you're right to highlight that. What Kulashekar Alva is saying here is that he's praying very hard that somehow or another he should lead his life in such a way that he's always taking association of devotees to remember Krishna. He is not rejecting the fact that he has to meet other people. But when we meet other people, Mataji, we should be so fixed in our devotional service that we should not be influenced by their lack of devotion. Rather, we should become so strong that we can give them our devotion. Another point Prabhupada says that's really important is in one purport, Prabhupada says, it is true that we must love everyone because Krishna is in the hearts of everyone. Then Prabhupada says, but Krishna is also in the heart of a tiger. But that doesn't mean we go and embrace a tiger. So Prabhupada uses that simple illustration to tell us that while we know everyone has the potential to become devotee, when our devotional service is not strong, we can't sit in a pub, for example, and do kirtan because eventually instead of us becoming so powerful we can change everyone, we may actually lose the power of bhakti and become influenced by those who are not devotional. So we should be careful not to hate anyone, but it doesn't mean that we don't run after those who know about Krishna and put more effort in trying to remember Krishna through them. Is that more helpful, Mataji?
It's much more helpful. And my second question was regarding Bhishma Dev, because if we notice, Bhishma Dev was a great devotee as also is one of the Mahajans. But in spite of being a great devotee, still he stood against Krishna in the war of in the Mahabharata Yudh. Why was it that being a great devotee also he stood against Krishna? Was his vows more important, or was being a devotee more important?
It was Krishna's plan that Bhishma Dev should stand up on the side of the Kauravas. This is an important principle that we don't often hear of because we always hear about the morality issue of Bhishma Dev. But we should remember that if Krishna did not want Bhishma Dev to be on the other side, then he would not have allowed Bhishma Dev to stand up for the Kauravas. But Bhishma Dev and many devotees of the Lord are very often put in inexplicable and awkward situations to prove a point to us in devotional service. Parikshit Maharaj, for example, Mataji, was not right in putting the garland of a dead snake on Shamika Rishi. He didn't do it right. But by putting him in that awkward situation, we understand what happens to us when we are sometimes put in a situation that appears to be detrimental and against everything else. How do we execute devotional service in such a situation? That is the point that Bhagavatam is trying to show us. The Mahabharata is a great literature, but we understand this point from Srimad Bhagavatam because in Srimad Bhagavatam, the main highest dharma is the dharma of devotional service. Bhishmadev understood that he was in a sthane position. Sthane means he had a duty. And as the head of the Kurus, in the sense of the grandsire, when the war was established and it was about to go on, the rules of dharmic principle stated that Bhishmadev would have to lead the army of the Kurus outside. Bhishmadev, in many parts of the Mahabharata, says very frankly that even though I'm leading a war, which actually I should not be on this side, I will do it because it is my occupational duty. But at the same time, in many parts of Mahabharata, Bhishma Dev also declares to the Kauravas and to his own army that our defeat is inevitable because we are not on the side of Krishna. This same point is given by Vritrasur in the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam also. Vritrasur was a demon, and yet why did he come to vanquish someone like Indra? Indra was actually a devata, and he was protected by Krishna. He came because he was actually born to kill Indra as an occupational duty. But he knew even when he was born that his occupational duty was that. But he had a higher duty. The higher duty was in any circumstance that Krishna put him, he was ready to obey and ready to be prepared to accept whatever Krishna gave. That is why Bhishma Dev came down from the chariot, ready to be killed by the Lord as Ratanga Pane, because never in his heart did he ever think for a moment that he was right. He always remembered that he may be in this position, but he would always be a devotee of the Lord. And he proved it at the end of his life, because even though all the Kuru dynasty was killed, Krishna gave him the benediction to lie on the bed of arrows, speak Bhagavatam to the Pandavas, and then leave in the presence of the Lord. So awkward situations happen to us in material life, and awkward situations are given to us through Mahabharata and Bhagavatam to teach us how to deal with them. The important thing is, throughout the difficult circumstances, Vritrasur did not lose sight of the goal of life. Bhishma Dev did not lose sight of the goal of life. Parikshit Maharaj did not lose sight of the goal of life. Whether they were right, they were wrong from a material point of view, we could argue till the cows come home. But what they did finally was the sanction of the Lord. And that is something for us to ponder. Does that help, Mataji, for you to think about it?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Was very, very, very clear. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
Pranam
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Dhanyavad.
In the translation for Ek Bhaktya, Prabhupada has given a translation exclusive devotional service. Uh,
Sorry, 1 minute. I'm just opening the verse again. 323. Oh, it's 324, right?
324.
43. Okay, you were saying, Prabhu? Sorry? Eka Bhaktya,
In the
exclusive devotion.
Yeah, translation is exclusive devotion.
Yes.
But exclusive, can you just elaborate on this exclusive devotion? Already I've told, given a very nice explanation about Ek Bhaktya. But this word of exclusive devotion, how we should understand this translation? Because exclusive devotion can mean two ways. You exclude all the other fruitive mentality and don't bring the fruitive mentality into devotion. It should be exclusively for Krishna and the devotion to Krishna. And other ways, exclusive devotion, can somebody understand that all your family duties also should be out of it? So it should be actually, in case of Kardamuni, it was actually inclusive for his family. He gave devotion to all his daughter and his wife, and they were all equally devoted as himself. And still, it was exclusive devotion to Krishna. So this just I thought it would be good to hear from you about this.
Actually, you answered the question very nicely at the end, Prabhu. Exclusive devotional service means we include everyone in the process of devotional service. That is how we become exclusive. The meaning of exclusive in devotional service is very unique. It doesn't mean that we artificially exclude everyone from becoming a devotee. It means we become very inclusive, but we include everyone somehow or another to engage them in devotional service. And such a devotee who spreads the message of the Lord, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, that person is the greatest of my devotees, the dearest of my devotees. So when one is exclusively devoted to Krishna, it doesn't mean that he will renounce his material engagements and duties. He will do it at the appropriate time when that time is needed, like Kadama Muni. Kadama Muni, from the start of his life, he was always exclusively devoted to Krishna. Krishna was always in the foreground of his life. And he added everything else in such a way that everything was moving towards Krishna. In other words, Prabhupada uses that famous word, Prabhu, dovetail. Dovetail. So exclusive devotional service, Prabhupada says in many purports, means to dovetail our activities to dovetail our duties, dovetail other persons to the lotus feet of Krishna. That includes our family members, it includes our friends, it includes whatever work we do, whatever activities we are doing. We should do it in such a way that we offer everything at the lotus feet of Krishna. And we say, Krishna, I'm undertaking this activity because it is my prescribed duty, but the foreground of my activity, not background, the foreground of my activity is that somehow or another I should keep you in my heart. And such a prayer will ensure that Krishna is attracted. And because you're not attached or averse to what you're doing, you actually perform it in such a way that Krishna blesses you, that you are somehow or another able to remember him, and yet you're able to perform your duties expertly. That's what happened to Arjuna. That's what happened to Parikshit Maharaj. And that's what even happened to Bhishma Dev. They all performed their duties immaculately. But in the foreground of all their duties, they were always remembering Krishna. Even when Kadamba Muni got married and he had this celestial, this amazing celestial palace, he did all that as a dutiful husband to please his wife. But in the foreground of all that he did, he was never away from Krishna. It is considered an art in devotional service, but the process is there, Prabhu. And if we are very submissive to the process, then Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual masters, they are the ones who will give us the strength to somehow or another be exclusively devoted to Krishna, even while performing all other duties. Is that helpful, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, just connecting question to in a situation where things do not actually work out the way you think or you desire, your family and the near and dears and surroundings are not becoming inclusive in the devotional service, and then to remain, fixed and you don't get carried away and all this becomes a challenge. So then what what should I know we have to be more fixed, but practically how to take it up and how to get through devotional service.
I think one of the important things when the situations are not working for us, Prabhu, is that we should not be discouraged. That's very important. We should never be discouraged or morose. Instead, we should see the hand of Krishna. We should pray to Krishna that somehow I'm trying very hard, Krishna, but it's not working out. But that doesn't mean I lose faith in you, Krishna. I will continue to do what I have to do to the best of my ability. Prabhu, Krishna is only concerned about your mentality and your attempts. Results are never in our hands, and we cannot control our situations either. So, because he is known as Bhavagrahi Janardana, he will exercise his mercy to understand that the devotee is trying very hard. A good example that's given actually is by what Radhanath Maharaj said one time. He said, Krishna doesn't count the amount of money you've given. Krishna is more concerned about the amount of money you're keeping. Meaning to say, Krishna doesn't see the external features of what we do and how our devotional service is looking. But he knows the internal struggle of every devotee because he's in our hearts. He knows how difficult things are. But if we pray to him and we try our very best, Krishna will be the person who will slowly work out the situation. But in the meantime, Prabhu, we should be patient. We should be favorable to Krishna. We should try our very best to be exclusively devoted to Krishna. Even if we have 5 minutes a day, let that 5 minutes be only for Krishna. And while we have to be distracted by so many other things, let us pray to Krishna that even while we perform those things, Krishna will give us the power of remembrance because he is the source of our remembrance, not us. If we pray like that, Prabhu, then I have not met a devotee in a difficult situation who could not remember Krishna. This is my experience actually. I hope it's useful, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a wonderful class. Prabhu, just on the point you were making with Simi, the earlier question about where you said that the behavior um, um, of all of these devotees was Krishna's will, whether it was Bhishma Dev or whether it was Parikshit Maharaj. Whenever they behaved in a way that was different from what we consider our morality. That was Krishna's plan. We use different decisions as Krishna's plan. We say, we think it is Krishna's plan. How do we know what is Krishna's plan and what is our desire?
Very good question, Mataji. The answer is found in chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita, and I'll direct you to the verse. Just 1 minute. The verse is text 34. It's in the purport. I'll read to you. Every plan is made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he's so kind and merciful to his devotees that he wants to give the credits to his devotees who carry out his plan according to his desire. Life should therefore move in such a way that everyone acts in Krishna consciousness and understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of a spiritual master. The plans of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are understood by his mercy, and the plans of the devotees are as good as his plans. One should follow such plans and be victorious in the struggles for existence. So you're right. We do not know Krishna's plans, but Prabhupada makes it very clear that we can only come to know Krishna's plans when we try to understand his plans through our spiritual masters or through the exalted devotees of the Lords who become our Siksha Gurus. Because their plans are more connected to Krishna than we are. And therefore, if we cannot understand what is the plan of Krishna, then we should seriously study Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Krishna will speak through Srila Prabhupada. And even for some reason we are still bewildered, then turn to our spiritual masters who will guide us, because their plans are as good as the Lord's plans. That is the best way and the royal and safe road to understanding the plans of the Lord. I hope that's useful, Mataji.
Very much so. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Radha Damodar from Abu Dhabi.
I can't hear you, Prabhu, sorry.
Radha Damodar from Abu Dhabi.
Radha Damodar Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
My pranam to you and my dandvat pranams to you.
We are missing your association, Prabhu, and pranams to Mataji and the children.
One question, Prabhu. You told in the class that to focus on devotional service, we need to have uninterrupted,
Unreserved, uninterrupted, and favorable.
Okay, it is favorable, Prabhu?
Huh?
Unfavorable. Favorable, right?
Favorable. Favorable.
Okay,
Yeah.
Favorable. That's it. I missed to write that one. Otherwise,
yes.
it's all nice. We keep on shouting your to Abu Dhabi, Prabhu.
I'm getting sadhu sangha from all of you. It's so nice. I'm reading the realizations you all have given, and I'm just remembering, just by hearing you and just by seeing your names, I'm really missing the association of devotees.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavats?
Pranam Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can you just kindly advise how to understand the mood of Bhishma Pitamaha at the time of the Draupadi episode? Such an exalted devotee, but he was there in the Sabha when they were trying to disrobe Draupadi Mata. So how do we understand the mood of such an exalted devotee at that time? And if you can kindly elaborate, Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandot.
Prabhu, the simple answer to that is Bhishma Dev stated in Mahabharata at that time that based on dharmic principles of law, it was not clear whether Draupadi should be a wager in the battle of the dice or she should not be. And because it was unclear at that point of time, it needed to be clarified. So that was Bhishma Dev's statement. If you look at the actual Mahabharata version given by Krishna Dharma Prabhu and Punya Prajna Prabhu, which is accepted in our society, you'll find that Bhishma Dev expresses that. Now, people may say, of course, and we can argue till the cows come home. Why did Parikshit Maharaj put a garland on the snake, on the devote, on what is his name, Shamika Rishi? Why did Bhishma Dev stand there? Why did Yudhishthira Maharaj actually do this to Draupadi? The important thing to understand is, if they did not sit down quiet and impotent, Draupadi would never have been able to stand up amidst that most difficult time in her life and pray to Krishna as Govinda and Yogeshwar and show the world what happens when one surrenders to the lotus feet of the Lord. She would not have been able to show to the world what will happen when the chastity of a devotee is compromised and who is the source of all sources of strength. Even the devotees of the Lord derive their strength, Prabhu, from Krishna. And finally, it is Krishna that we turn to, and Krishna gives all strength to all devotees. So it's very important for us to wear that lens to understand that if that pastime did not come to pass, we would not be able to understand what is the true meaning of surrender, as it is stated in Hari Bhakti Vilas and as shown by Draupadi Mata when she stood up and took on the whole force of that apparent humiliation by surrendering to Govinda. That is how we should see Sashtra.
Yes,
Is
Prabhuji.
that
Prabhuji,
helpful?
one more point. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, maybe can we understand this way that Bhishma Pitame was also knowingly helping Krishna's plan to destroy the wicked? So he kept quiet so that Krishna's plan could come to fruition, and therefore the demons kind of people could be killed. Was that also there in the mind of Bhishma Pitama at that time when he was sitting there?
When we read Mahabharata, we don't have a glimpse into his mind at that point. But Prabhu, if you read Sastras, we will realize that all great devotees of the Lord are always guided by the Lord as super soul in the heart. So they know what to say when and when to say what. I
Thank you,
think that's
Prabhu.
a good enough answer.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare,
Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna with Andhaj Prabhu.
Dandavats Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mushina and Das from Chennai Prabhu.
Haribol, Srinaran Prabhu. Very happy to hear you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. One quick question,
Hari-
like the points we mentioned in terms of being Dhira, Eka Bhaktya, and trying to understand between the aversion and renunciation, uh, trying to understand, take up the role in the Kardamuni, as you mentioned, like he already was in the renounced order and he already had a plan. Similarly, throughout Bhagavatam, I can see in terms of either it is Rishabhadev, Bharat Maharaj, or Yudhishthira, Pandavas. At some point of the time, they already have a short-term plan and a long-term plan, and then they move from one ashram to another, but continue to do this bhakti and identify the difference between the aversion and the renunciation, right? So,
Yeah,
uh, for the grahasthas for the grahasthas, as we are in our early 50s and 60s, we may have our internal plan. We might come out of it, or we might just make it secret. And then, how do you recommend in terms of it may not be possible in the current society, but I just want to understand, like, should we focus our long-term plan also and then keep working? If so, what is your specific recommendation in that?
nice question. I like the point you said about keeping our renunciation plan secret in Grasta Ashram. Because if we make our plan too direct, there may not be any renunciation. Who knows? But your point is nice, Prabhu. We are living in a world which is so different today than what it was before. Before Kali came, it was so natural, for husband and wife to reach a certain point in their ashram where they are completely devoted to Krishna. And then they would just leave the material affairs from a geographical point of view. And they would go somewhere and they would conduct pilgrimage and yatras. But if you see the mercy of Srila Prabhupada in our society, you realize that in our society that is happening. Many devotees, they reach a point of their life where even between husband and wives, very naturally the physical attractions, the impediments of man and woman are actually naturally doused. Why? Because both husband and wife, when they're continuing with Krishna consciousness, they become so fixed with all the activities that they have really no time for materialistic pursuits. So actually, Prabhu, in many ways, Vanaprastha as an ashram is included within our Grahastha time because devotees already start becoming naturally renounced. And they try and include their children in that mood also. So when devotee families come together and put Krishna in the center, actually all the ingredients of the four orders of our ashram, they actually found within the family. Devotees who are fixed, they are naturally renounced. So they don't allow the materialistic pursuits to become very important when they are continuing devotional service. The children become well educated, we pray. And when they reach a certain point of life, many husbands and wives, they may continue staying close by, but they are in their own space. Or even if they stay with the children because children want to serve them, they spend many months of the year traveling. They spend many months of the year serving their Guru Maharajas or taking on a project. So, to all intents and purposes, they have already wound up their materialistic pursuits. And therefore, the attachment and aversion does not become an impediment to them. Why? Because they are engaged in exclusive devotional service. And some of them go on, after that, where they don't live together at all. And husband and wife very naturally continue in different ashrams. And some of them in our movement take up sannyas after some time. And the wives continue with their lives in devotional service, protected by their children. So, actually, when you look at the way our society has been built, the genius and the mercy of Srila Prabhupada in combining elements of the ashram within an existing ashram. Going to come. So at this moment, our idea should be that our devotional service must become fixed. And that will help us in our ashrams in a very natural way. Maybe I can take
Point taken. Thank you.
one more query or one more question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat
Hare
Pranams.
Krishna. Dandavats.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, you have explained very well nicely. Lord Kardama Muni is a sincere devotional service, and then how he performed this, throughout his lifetime. And I have read about in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he has, did penance for more than 10,000 years, so that Krishna has appeared in front of him. So I'm just comparing to our in the Kali Yuga now the situation. The people are short-lived, and we are living around 70 or 75 years. And half of that year, it's going in a night time. We are in a sleeping mode, and remaining period also most of the time we are in the youth and tender age. So our devotional service, considering the previous Satya Yuga and Treta Yuga, we are very little, and also we don't have the association or society where they have a pure devotional services are performed. Even for example, in Satya Yuga, the Lord appeared frequently. Say for an example, when Amrish Maharaj was in trouble, Lord sent his Sudarshan Chakra. When Dhruva Maharaj performed a serious penance, and Lord appeared in front of him. Even Prahlad Maharaj, when he prayed, Lord appeared in front of him. So Lord appearance was frequent in Satya Yuga. When it comes to Treta Yuga, so Lord Sri Ramachandra has ruled the kingdom and showed the presence. So as a human nature, we always want to see and we always want to be guided. Even in Dwapara Yuga, Krishna has ruled. We know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared in Kali Yuga in 14th or 15th century. Maybe in the current situation, because of human nature and Maya is so strong, people are not performing devotional. People are going in a different direction. Maybe we need to have a more appearance of the Lord. Just would you like to throw on it this, Prabhuji?
It's a good point, Prabhu, but it ultimately depends on the Lord. The Lord must have a reason why in this Kali Yuga he has come in the form of the holy name. The holy name is so accessible that frankly, when you talk to devotees who are practicing devotional service for years, they will tell you that just by chanting Krishna's names every day, they experience so much bliss of, of which the likes of seeing Krishna is almost the same. So we should have faith that while in Satya Yuga, the Lord decided to come in that way, in Treta Yuga, he decided to come in another way. In Dwapara Yuga, he decided to come one more way. In Kali Yuga, his rule and regulation for this age is that we should take his shelter in the form of the holy names. So we should be very clear that whatever Krishna gives us, is always good for us. And therefore, even though Kali Yuga may be an ocean of fault, as Shukadev Goswami explains, the important thing is it has one amazing quality, and that's the quality of chanting of the holy names. So if we exclusively focus our bhakti in such a way that primarily our chanting of the holy names increases in terms of quantity and more importantly quality, then we will never feel that we are shortchanged in this yuga, despite all the challenges and impediments, because the taste of the holy name is as good as seeing Krishna. And Prabhupada writes in many, many purports as the founder Acharya that in this age, hearing about Krishna, chanting his names is as good as seeing him. And even Brahmaji says in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam 3rd canto, 9th chapter, he also says that those who want to see Krishna's lotus feet, they can see just by hearing about him. And so if we develop faith in Shastras and we develop more faith in what the Lord wants, then we become very congenial to his instructions and we accept them with earnestness, we accept them with eagerness, and the process will work. And we will feel that great bliss that all the previous yugas also gave to the great devotees of the Lord. I hope that's useful, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranams.
So I take leave now, Prabhus and Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
just one quick
Yes.
question. And
Okay.
sorry for because you want to end. I am asking you. I am Manohar Prabhu. Manohar Swan Prabhu.
No, it's okay. Yes.
Just life duration of our life is it already fixed by Krishna in advance, or because of our healthy habits we live longer? That is my question.
Well, the answer that I can give you is that based whether we are implicated by material nature or not is really the important thing. If we come fully under the shelter of Krishna, Prabhu, and that only Krishna knows and we don't, then our lifespan and everything else about us is under him, is under his spiritual guidance. So if Krishna wanted to extend the life of a pure devotee so that the devotee doesn't leave at that time but continues, he can do it. If Krishna decides he wants to do anything, Prabhu, he can do it.
Okay.
If we understand Bhagavan in that feature, then
Yeah.
the answer becomes clear. I think that's the easier way for us to understand whether it is fixed or not. We should know finally that Krishna can plan anything. And if anything is fixed, it's only him. If something else was so fixed that he can't do anything about it, or we can't do anything about it, even if we're under his shelter, then that fixing is stronger than Krishna. So really it's up to Krishna. And as to the question of health, there are many devotees who are very healthy and they just die. Then there are devotees who are unhealthy but they live forever.
Correct.
The most important thing I think is whether we are in a state of unhealthiness or health is our consciousness. Sometimes devotees in great state of unhealth, they somehow can remember Krishna better. Some devotees who are in the pink of health, they take life for granted. They don't remember Krishna. So whether we are healthy or not healthy, again, the exclusive consideration is that we should pray to Krishna to remember him. And I think in that way, we may do some things commonsensically. Prabhupada, for example, always told us we should take care of our health. And Bhagavatam first canto, Shukadev Goswami says one of our prayers should be for good health. Why? Because this body belongs to Krishna. And if the body belongs to Krishna, we have a duty, a minimum duty at least, to take care of the body and not in the name of renunciation throw the body to the vultures, so to speak. I hope that's useful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu Matajis. With your permission, I will take leave now. When we are all together, it's different. I would say Hare Krishna and then I'll go and have prasadam now in somebody's house in Abu Dhabi.
Prabhuji, for a wonderful class. Thank you very much. Please keep on giving your association. Since you are not able to come personally, at least through this media, we are able to associate with you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. So nice of you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Jai.